Talk shoes. Recorded live.
Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week, we continue our retrospective on the Poltergeist series as we lead up to the brand new Poltergeist remake, this time with the punishing Poltergeist 3. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of really genuinely self-respecting horror fans who have. So warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, creator of the Alex Van Helsing novels. With me from Austin is Tony Salvaggio, lead singer of the band Deserts of Mars and co-creator of the comic Psycom from Tokyo Pop, Clockworks from Humanoids, from deep in an underground bunker near a studio that must not be named, Tony Salvaggio.
Howdy.
Hi. Howdy. Also in Austin, Mr. Drew Edwards, writer for Rockabilly Online and creator and writer of the long-running comic Halloween Man. Say hello, Drew.
You know, I think I want to summon up the spirit of Tom Skerritt's bitchin' late 80s mustache for the studio.
All right, and also joining us from Denver, as always, color commentary from the one and only attorney Julia Guzman. Say hello.
Hello, Billy.
Hello. All right. According to Wikipedia, it's just painful for me to even... Okay. According to Wikipedia, Poltergeist 3 is a 1988 American horror film and is the third and final entry in the original Poltergeist film series. Writers Michael Gray and Mark Victor, who wrote the screenplay for the first two films, did not write this movie. It was co-written, executive produced, and directed by Gary Sherman and was released on June 10th, 1988 by MGM Pictures. The film was universally panned by critics, and it was also a box office disappointment. Heather O'Rourke and Zelda Rubinstein were the only original cast members to return. Ms. O'Rourke died 4 months before the film was released, and before post-production could be completed, it was dedicated to her memory. Good Lord. There's so much to discuss here. So let's get our opening thoughts, starting in the underground bunker. We'll go Tony, Drew, Joya, and then I'll just say, Tony, let us know what you think.
This movie, you know, I was hoping maybe I was just a little wrong. Maybe I've been too harsh on this movie in the past. But no, it is really terrible. It is an embarrassment of terrible. Like, just one terrible thing followed by another poor choice, followed by people, you know, trying to make the best of this thing that they're stuck in. And it's also a shame, like, what they did with the character who was so awesome. You know, a man died of stomach cancer, and they kind of sort of bring him back in this movie and just crap all over his legacy. That's just, you know, the girl dies before this is through, and this is her last film. If you want to talk about a curse, that's got to be that's the worst. I mean, so many poor decisions after poor decisions. It's a shame.
Okay. Drew, can you put some color on that, or are you going to follow that exactly?
I feel like this movie, it's interesting that this is not the same screenwriters from the original two movies, because I feel like the biggest problem I have with this movie, and I have a lot. I mean, I have a giant kill list that I could go on the things that I just hate about this movie. But the major thing at the top of the list is that it's completely inconsistent with the other two movies in both tone and with the rules of the ghosts, and really the motivations of Kane as a character are completely it's like the guys that wrote the screenplay for this didn't bother to go back and watch the first two movies. They just kind of watched it from a vague memory of what the first two were like.
I think that's right.
Oh, yeah. And it's also just, it's definitely a very post Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Like, we're going to do these things.
It does seem like that there's a bigger emphasis on. I mean, there's grotesque effects in the other one, but this one is so much more like violent than the other way. So does seem like they're trying to kind of keep up with the Freddys and Jasons,
well,
you know.
Just in the weirdness of how things happen, and just it's kind of like it feels like a design by committee kind of movie. It also feels like, I always go back to movies like this, it always feels like the boardroom scene in in Big, where, you know, who would want a skyscraper? Who would want a building that turns into a robot? It feels like that. Like, kids like things. Kids like cars and weird dream sequences. Kids like there's teenagers, right? They do some teenager stuff. I don't know.
I keep hearing all
like,
the
it
time.
Just feels like that.
You're right about the teenager stuff. The teenager stuff in this just feels so, just like beyond cliched. I almost feel.
It feels like a lot like the teenagers from Jason Takes Manhattan. It has like that feel of like a later, not like an early Friday the 13th movie, but like one of the later 80s Friday the 13th.
Generic USA Up All Night teenager shenanigans that just it doesn't even feel like original teenager shenanigans. They feel exactly, you know, like.
No, it feels like old people trying to like. I hear the kids like things that are rad.
Well,
we use rad still, right? Like,
James, my wife. When we were watching this, my wife had a very good observation, is that even though the other movies are older, this movie feels the most the most dated, the most like the other movies have a more timeless quality. This seems like a cheesy 80s horror film.
I will have to say that where we talked a lot about the fashions and how, you know, we can see that and stuff. This movie looks like the 80s vomited a movie. Like, it's gone past like, oh, we're in the 80s. This movie looks like, I put that as a note. It looks like a movie vomited out of the 80s. Like, just, like, the fashions are so, everything is like, this is stuff, this is the mall. I've been to the mall. I've seen all of this. Let's do that. Like,
that's the
like
problem,
maybe the Galleria Mall, but it still feels like that.
These are high, upper middle class 80s fashions, unlike in the first movie where everybody wore sort of Sears off the rack, which frankly looks like off the rack more or less any time, right? You know, t-shirts and jeans, sweatshirts and panties.
A lot of big hair.
And panties.
A lot of big hair in this movie.
The kids don't look like rich 80s kids. No, the parents do, and she's wearing, you know, but again, super 80s high fashion, like, quote-unquote high fashion, I guess. But, like, that feels like, you know, she's wearing clothes that Nagel painted. Like, the mom.
You're right.
But the kids are still like, oh, we went to the mall or we saw a Debbie Gibson or Tiffany video, that's what they're going to do, rather than, like, you know, rich people's kids. I don't know. It just feels like, it totally feels that way. And it's weird because the other one...
There's an attempt at seeming fashionable, which was not the case in the first one, where once again, your sweatshirt from the university, that's not going to change in 50 years, so it looks the same. Julia, we got to get your first impressions before we continue this uninterrupted slaughter of Poltergeist 3.
Well, apparently it was not nominated for any Oscars, and I'm just baffled. I'm perplexed as to how that happened.
Wow.
Completely overlooked, snubbed by the industry. This film is just really, really painful. My biggest thing, though, and it's going to be the silliest thing, but it is the thing that irks me the most, is that throughout the film, at the end of the film, we are shown that, in fact, the boyfriend, young what's his name, the kid's name?
I can't remember.
Scott, I think is his name. Anyway, Lara Flynn Boyle's boyfriend in fact, did not come out from the other side like we had thought he had. And so he never does. So he also has been sucked up, but nobody ever, notes that. Like Tangina, we get her whole story, and then the family, but this poor kid is just gone.
Yes.
I don't know why. Of all the things that were awful about that movie, that's the one that bothered me the most.
And why couldn't it have been the bratty girl with glasses? Why did she not meet a terrible fate? Because if you're gonna make a movie like that, that's the first character who should meet an awful, terrible fate. She should have had someone bust out of her. Like,
well, the psychologist is the first character that needs to meet an awful fate, and he does.
The psychologist gets thankful. That guy's a terrible actor, though. Like,
he's a terrible person in the movie.
This whole movie is filled with terrible actors. I mean, not the leads, but the rest of them are just atrocious.
The leads, I agree with Tony that many times the leads are trying really earnestly. You have really fine actors. I think Nancy Allen is a good actress. Maybe that's RoboCop's partner, right? Yes, and she's the bitch and a half in Carrie, and she's
which, by the way, gets mentioned in this film. So it's a little nod to her.
That's right. But she's good, and Tom Skerritt's always good. But God, how hard they have to work with these just ridiculous lines. Okay,
I kind of feel like though the aunt and uncle angle was like a last second thing because they couldn't get the original.
So
because the fact that the uncle was also involved with real estate is very
exactly.
Yeah. So okay, more about that, Drew. Explain to us when we begin this movie, because we may as well cover the plot of the film.
Carol Ann has been sent to Chicago to live with her aunt and uncle so she can go to a Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, essentially, only run by he's bald, but he's an asshole. And he thinks that Carol Ann is capable of causing mass hypnosis.
Right.
Yeah.
He literally thinks she has some kind of psychic power where she can convince a whole neighborhood of crazy stuff.
Except he doesn't.
Because that's somehow more believable. That's somehow more believable than ghosts.
Everybody takes that as though it's totally real.
He believes that she can. Like, it's not even like he believes it's supernatural. He believes some pop psychology stuff. Which, by the way, also he's terrible because it's the 80s and we don't have anti-bullying kind of stuff going on. But he just watches his people like, hey, you know what? Let's just take this kid who's got a fragile psyche. Let's just watch the bullies just kind of mess with her all the time.
To be fair,
one-way glass. He has one-way glass in his school for troubled children.
Yeah.
And he's like he's the worst. He's the worst in administration. He hates all the kids pretty much, but especially Carol Ann.
To be fair, I had teachers like that in the 80s who were not only were they not stopping the bullying, but they were participating right in there with them. So that part's not that hard.
But he is supposed to, like, the way the school's supposed to run. You don't you wouldn't expect that until you watch it. You're like, man, this guy is just a schmuck. Like, he's just such a jerk.
So the main thing is that whole angle with Carol Ann going to this school. That is an early clue that we know that we're off base, because that's some crazy. In the first movie, remember, they had parapsychologists, and it was all taken with a sort of. It was interesting because they were so professional, but they were also kind of embarrassed. There's no degrees in parapsychology, yada yada. In this one, all of a sudden there's like special cool schools for gifted youngsters, and he's totally taken it for granted that she has essentially what I could only call mutant powers, and that's and then meanwhile the home plot and this is where Drew was saying, this may have been a totally different kind of, it may have originally started as a different plot. They are in this high rise, but instead of the original parents, Heather O'Rourke is now staying for some extended period, I guess, so she can go to the school with her aunt and her new step-uncle or whatever, her aunt's new husband. And they have a teenage daughter. Well, so that basically means that you've just simply slotted, Carol Ann into a new family with an older daughter, and you just got rid of the son. So
it's like it's like a turn in a sitcom. It's like 2 seasons in. When they shipped off, that's when it really got bad. When they shipped her off.
Yes.
blah blah blah. It feels like that. And by the way,
Nothing to start.
score.
Well, and
the fact that
point,
the uncle is also involved in real estate really makes me think that this was like a cut and paste
Yeah, I
job.
had the same exact thought as you.
Yeah, originally this was just going to be the parents. We've all moved to downtown Chicago, fine. And then there's ghosts in downtown Chicago.
Well, it's not a ghost that Kane followed her there.
Oh, it's demon.
The psychologist shook Kane loose somehow.
Yeah, he made her remember, and so now Kane was.
In other words, he was hiding in Carol Ann's skull, and he's going to start haunting her again now.
No, he's not hiding in Carol Ann's skull. He can only find Carol Ann if she remembers him, because then that's how he gets that connection.
That sounds like what I just said.
No, because he doesn't live in her skull. He connects from wherever he is to her.
Listen, man, it would have been way more awesome if he had crawled out of Carol Ann's skull.
Yeah, okay.
But
if that had a scene where Kane literally crawled out of Carol Ann's skull, that would have bumped this movie up a notch and cool.
Well, there are scenes where people literally crawl out of people's skulls.
Oh my gosh,
actually,
that's right.
By the way.
Yeah, that's true. There's literally a scene where an evil doppelganger crawls her way out of the desiccated corpse of Zelda Rubinstein.
Well, it's not really the corpse, but it's the.
I have to tell you, that is the only good shtick in this whole thing.
I will have to say that as not super great. Yeah, that's the most horrific. That's the money shot for the effects in this, and the actual horror part of this, because the rest is really like pretty sub. I mean, they tried some things with the door that kind of melts away, and some of the mirror stuff. But
there's some good mirror stuff.
The problem is they've sort of tacked on this. Again, Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street style. This movie's much more violent, but it's like a violence that's ultimately timid, because this had to function within a PG-13 rating. So it's all sizzle and no steak. Like, you never get like in a proper R-rated slasher movie, you're going to get some sort of grotesque payoff to all these setups. This movie can't go there.
Well, it's a very post Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, the gags in it, it's just like, again, it just feels like, hey, I've heard some things the kids like. Let's throw some of this in. Oh, I mean, like when they get locked in the freezer and there's the animals, and then the really unconvincing like water filling in, which there's no tension because you don't ever get the chance. Like, they don't try to show them drown. They just kind of like, and Tangina bubbles up from below to give them a thing. So that happens. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's the thing. Yes. Here you go. I guess she didn't really get desiccated and clawed through. So many.
Well,
and the score, too. The score really is what, like, doubles down on.
Music.
It's so like, it's like the score from something like Troll 2 or any number. There's any number of 80s movies where they just gave somebody an okay keyboard and said, make something, and it's so on the nose. Like, it stops short of going wah wah at some point. Like, it's close to that at any given moment. It's just
to bring us back. Actually,
man, it's so terrible.
To come back to the plot just a little bit. Like, at the when we first meet her, obviously there's been some rewrites so that she's, for various reasons, never quite completely explained, but probably because of the school she's attending, she's staying with these relatives, and there's a whole bunch of
Or maybe because they're trying to hide her from Kane.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, but there's all this time spent in the beginning of this movie with just domestic crap, again, first movie did that too, so it should be fine, but instead it all just falls flat. It feels very awkward and forced. The goofy fun-lovingness of the family, and the teenage daughter who's learning to put on makeup, and there's, is she going to get along with her stepmom and all this stuff, but it just feels so TV movie. It feels worse than TV movies, in fact, because, I can imagine going into the theater and going, wait, did I actually spend money to see these people talk about whether or not their carpool is going to be on time, it just...
Well, no, just the first 10 minutes or so, where it's just this family kind of visiting and talking about the formal that they're going to tonight and talking about, whatever. It's like, I was like, how have we spent 10 minutes getting into this and talking about this stuff when you could have covered it in 2 lines and some outfits,
Well, as Joya pointed out, look, remember how good the original movie was at telling the story? Like, they spend 5 screen minutes talking about how they're going to a formal. And Joya's point was great, which is that really all you got to do is show them
in their formal attire.
Show them going to the formal. And then they're out of formal. We don't need them talking about beforehand that they're going to go to one. It's almost like the movie turned out to be too short, and they just had to leave in every conceivable thing.
Well, also, it's inconsistent not only in tone, but it's like in even how they treat Carol Ann. Like, sometimes they're like, oh, she's so not, like, yeah, good thing we got her from our deadbeat brother, blah, blah, blah. His sister, that was a terrible thing. And then other times, like, they're really, and then other times they're just exasperated they even have to deal with Carol Ann. Like, there's no consistency across the board.
Woman, especially Nancy Allen.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, that girl, we should send her away. We don't need her. Like, when she gets swallowed up by the...
I found her to be a very unsympathetic character, to be honest.
Awful character.
Like, in the way she comes... Yeah, the way she kind of comes through in the end seems very out of left field because she doesn't seem to have too much love for Carol Ann once the going gets tough. Like, honestly, Tom Skerritt's character is a lot more sympathetic.
Hell yeah. Yeah, he's like,
but
we
even
can't abandon her. Yeah,
but even that's inconsistent because he's like, all those psychics and, like, all those quacks and, I can't believe, what a deadbeat her dad was. And then he's like, but then he kind of likes her. It's just so, it definitely does feel like a rewrite because it's so inconsistent all across the board. This movie is just, like, fights itself the whole way through.
Yeah. It switches back and forth. We don't know. So, which one of these is more sympathetic towards Carol Ann and which is less? It changes. She, at various times, and I think maybe it's just a writing problem, Nancy Allen's character towards Carol Ann is such an incredible witch that you kind of think, well, maybe she's been possessed by demons,
yeah, that's what you thought.
Craig T. Nelson swallowed the mescal worm, and it made him, an evil rapist dude. Maybe she's become a bitch, because she's possessed. But no, nothing like that. It's just
it's because she's rich and in the 80s. Like, she's the art. She runs the art gallery or whatever, I guess.
Yeah.
So it seems like
she has all of this is inside one building that in the fiction of this movie is like it's the Hancock Center, okay? But in the fiction of the movie, it's
the Galleria. I mean, it's a gallery of apartments and offices.
It's got pools, it's got offices, it's got condominiums. It's a whole city in itself. If they didn't have to send Carol Ann off to her private school, everybody could basically hang out in the building all the time. The two parents.
And that's the thing. This is like a waste of a good idea. The idea of doing, a Poltergeist movie in a high-rise is cool. Like, the idea is cool.
It was like another movie at some point. Like, somebody wanted to write a movie in an all-inclusive high-rise, which is a thing that, like, but top of the line, right? So it's all rich people and it's rich gatherings and all that. And the thing is, you kind of seen movies like that. Somebody kind of wanted to write that, but then, Poltergeist have to be there. That scary Kane guy, wasn't he scary in the last one? I think he was. Well, shove him in this movie with the high rise. What could possibly go wrong with that?
I would have been perfectly fine, Tony. They could have done that, though. The funny thing is, I would have been perfectly fine if they did that. And if you want to make Kane the one, then fine. But we don't even need Carol Ann. We don't need anybody for this. Just if you tell me this is a Poltergeist movie, I'm going to take your word for it. That's fine. You could have Jo Beth Williams wander through and go, gosh, believe me, you need to get out of here. This reminds me of my time in Phoenix or whatever. But let's talk about Carol Ann for a second, because holy fuck, this girl, this poor child is ill. She is ill, all right? She's
the actual child, the actress.
The actress is very ill. She's taking drugs that have made her super unhealthy looking and puffy and weird. She looks like an ill child, which I guess does it serve the character or not? I don't know. But yeah, she has Crohn's disease. It's going to kill her. And I
know it's going to kill her.
I just kind of feel like I don't know. Look, we don't really know what's going on behind.
Well, the biggest part is that after she dies, they decided to change the ending because it's not PG-13, and so they want to make it PG-13. So they filmed a new ending with they filmed a different ending after she died with a stand-in, with a what do you call it, a double. And all that stuff that happens at the end, where she goes, where they all come out of the light, like all that, the whole ending, where they come out of the mirror in the closet and all that. That's filmed with another actress, a stand-in actress. And the original ending was actually, I can read you the original ending according to the IMDb. It said that it was, Patricia, she finds Carol Ann. So Patricia jumps through the glass pane into the apartment. She finds Carol Ann, Donna, Scott, Bruce, and Tangina. Scott, so by the way, Scott is in that one. He actually gets saved in the original ending. Okay. They're frozen and dying. She then also becomes imprisoned in ice and gets attacked by Kane and her evil mirror reflection who wants the necklace. Patricia tries to repel them and declares unconditional love for her family, so that's the same. But trips over a frozen Tangina and falls to the floor. Suddenly, Tangina frees her arm from the ice and grabs the necklace. She convinces Kane she's the only one who can take him to the other side, not Carol Ann. Kane puts his hand on the necklace, but instead of ascending, his face cracks and he explodes. The blast frees everyone but annihilates Tangina and causes a violent thunderstorm. Patricia, Carol Ann, Donna, Scott, and Bruce, finally leave the mirror dimension. Carol Ann sees a reflection of smiling Tangina in the mirror, who waves at them and sheds a tear. With a shot of a rising morning sun, the movie ends. That's the ending they filmed, and that's the ending that kept them at PG. Oh. And then they refilmed it with PG-13 with the stand-in after Heather dies.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, also that's again, this is a whole show don't tell thing. You didn't we talked about this. You didn't need than to say, by the way, love is the only thing. You saw a family who loved each other and cared about each other.
Hug on one another, because that will keep them at bay.
You watched it, you're hey, that's a family that loves each other. You didn't need, by the way, guess what? Love is everything. Let me say it 5 times in case you're just really stupid.
Poor Zelda Rubinstein, who is back once again at Tangina. I think that, look, we know that she's a good actress because she did great in the first movie. I think I think they basically just give her just endless amounts of bullshit to say, and it's just really embarrassing. I just found it.
Yeah, she's awesome, but she can only, again, this is one of those, everybody's trying. The ex playing Carol Ann, she's given this crap. They give her a stupid speaking spell. Oh, that'll never turn out well.
Yeah.
That'll
never get
having things talk is I wonder if they're going to use that. All of that stuff, they just give her this poor sick child. And the fact, again, they bring back Kane, but the makeup looks terrible in that effect they use at the end where it's his face as a melting. For shame, everyone who did all of that.
I want to cover
one
last thing.
I question the wisdom of even using the Kane character at all. I mean, I think you could theoretically do it if you got a good enough actor, but they didn't really.
They could have had an ambassador for Kane. If Kane sent me.
Well, they didn't even try. They got a guy that they thought kind of looked like him, made him up in monster makeup.
Yeah.
And they overdubbed it with a voice actor that could do the voice. And
kind of.
Yeah, kind of. Instead of just trying to find a guy that had a similar, if you're gonna do it, if you're gonna recast, you need to find a guy that has a similar creepiness. to him. And like admittedly, that's a pretty tall order. But
you don't even have to do that though. You can have it just be someone going by the beast. Like it doesn't have to be. It makes even less sense that it's Kane. It's even more sense that if it's the beast, and that can be anybody. That could be anybody from Kane. It could be some dude who looks like Anton LaVey. It could be Vigo the Destroyer from it could be anybody. It could be the principal. I mean, hopefully not that actor.
Actually, it would have been cool if the principal
that would have been something. It could be anybody. Could be the beast, and instead they're like, well, that was the creepiest part, so we're going to run with that.
I gotta say, I feel like Kane's motivation has changed from the other movies.
Okay,
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
It's like because now he wants Carol Ann to take him to the light. And in the
that's
first
what they let us know. They tell us that at the very end of the film. At the very end, Tangina goes, it turns out he just wants to go to heaven. I'll take him. So you guys just hang out here. Bye.
Which is really, I like that. That's pretty
sweet. But that's not what he wanted in the other movie. He wanted to use Carol Ann to keep the other.
He was like Satan himself. He wanted to bring everybody down.
Also,
he wanted to oppress all the other ghosts and use Carol Ann to keep people from the light.
Exactly.
Well,
I'm with you.
They explain that let's say that is the plot of the movie. Like we start out Kane going, "Do you know what, disciples? I have decided I want to see this heaven, but I will need someone to teach me." That would be the
You
plot.
need to work on your Kane impression, Jay.
Oh, yes, I forgot. He's not the tall man, I'm sorry. Anyway, the point is, if that's the plot, you got to let us know early, not like at the very
They could
end.
have had like a thing, if they had actually found a good actor, they could have had like a thing where he's like, oh, I am weary of this limbo or something like that. And, they could have made that work, but they just kind of, it's just kind of thrown out there because they had to end the movie.
Well, and there could be so much comedy if you think about it, not comedy, but like Joss Whedon level comedy. I think where if you had a character, the bad guy wants to go to heaven now, and so they're going to try and get the hero to get them to heaven, and of course they have bad guy instincts, and they have to try to be good, but they keep doing bad things. That could be cool. That could be funny because it becomes like Terminator 2, where you try to get somebody to turn over a new leaf. But this is bullshit. They just mention it at the end because they want the movie to be over now. It's so...
Everyone wants this movie to be over. But none more than the viewer.
I just wanted to mention, there's also a subplot where we follow teenagers who are gonna... Lara Flynn Boyle, before she was famous on Twin Peaks, Lara Flynn Boyle here is just a cute teenage girl, and she's supposed to babysit her possibly terribly disturbed niece, Carol Ann, who can't be more than 7, 8, 11, I have no idea. Anyway, the point is, you shouldn't leave Carol Ann by herself. And instead, so they say, hey, we're going to the formal, you watch Carol Ann, and Lara Flynn Boyle goes, no problem. And then Carol Ann says, I hear you're invited to a party, you go. I'll take care of things here. I'll just pop some popcorn. You go have a good time. And
even though, by the way, at this point she's already started to see disturbing things. Like she sees this window cleaner turn into Kane, and then she sees weird reflections in mirrors. So you think she'd be a little bit wary of being by herself.
What I love is, who cares? The teenager takes the advice of the
I don't have a problem with that because honestly,
I find that kind of believable. Like it's
I find it believable.
Yeah.
Because she's in the same building, number one. Presumably she can call. She's a phone call away. We leave our 10-year-old, our 9-year-old alone for an hour at a time, whatever. And we're not even teenagers; we're adults. It's like, so I get that. I think that's okay. It's just the fact that Carol Ann has been so disturbed and all that. That seems.
Yeah. Plus, it's kind of a bonding thing. She's like, no, or that's big sister. It's cool. I'm cool with you going like. Yeah, let's just keep it between us.
Yeah, because she's just called her a brat.
That feels like that's in fact one of the most genuine things in this whole crappy movie is the actual like, hey, you know what? It'll be cool. I understand. You're older. It's kind of a bonding thing. I actually found that fairly believable as opposed to a lot of the other crap. But
I mean, now we have to watch them, like, the teenagers now sneaking around, going into the security to do bullshit with the security tapes, you know, and stealing stuff from the you know, convenience store that's in the building, you know, and all of this. And I'm like, why are we And I thought, surely someone's going to get killed. Someone's going to get knifed or axed or, like, sucked down through the water purification pipes or something. But no, nothing happens to these people. They're just wasted teenagers.
Again, it's hard to like a kind of like you think when the building starts to crack, like when the mirror cracks all the way up on the floors, you're like, oh, this is, again, it feels like they wanted this kind of horror disaster movie thing to happen. And again, there have been a few of these ideas floating around. And they're just like, well, we also have to have the Poltergeist thing in some form. So, but again, neither one of them turns out to be effective. And when they get sucked down, they're revealed like, ha, the kids are really possessed. They use makeup from the V miniseries. Let's let that happen. And really crappy latex gloves. Like none of this is scary. It wasn't scary when I saw it before. It's terrible, and when you're older, like it.
Well, and it's so random. Like, okay, so you've got the stupid psychologist who's just an ass, and then you've got the girl who. Okay, so the Scott comes up through the pool, which is totally believable that he would get spat out of the pool, and he's like all covered in slime or whatever. And so you're like, okay, so Scott's come back through from the other side because they got sucked into a puddle in the garage, and now they've come out, like he's come out of the pool. So he's like,
that's
okay.
The other thing. Why can't it happen in the pool where it would be scary? Instead, they shoved them into the parking garage in a tiny puddle for budget's sake, of course. But all of that would be much scarier if crazy crap happened in the actual pool. Instead, they send them to a tiny pool. In the parking garage.
I like the thing where all the angry cars in the icy garage are trying to swift.
I like that part.
Scary.
By the way, they almost lost a cameraman during that because one of the cars, when it blew up, actually set the whole set on fire.
Oh dear!
And so he was trying to rescue some cameras, and he almost got killed.
That, although the lead car with the light shining out of it is probably one of the most cheesy 80s effects in short of like post-apocalyptic.
I liked it.
Like a rip-off.
I want to know how Kane knows how to drive a car.
You know, you learn a few things in the other world. Like, you don't know.
Yeah,
you
think they got cars
in the works over there? Sure.
Yeah.
Why not? Like,
he could absorb knowledge from other dead people. It's possible that Kane.
Well, the DMV is pretty hellish. So, you know, in hell, maybe it's more like a Beetlejuice kind of thing. Like,
he actually.
There's a movie, Kane versus Beetlejuice.
That would be.
I'm gonna learn how to drive.
Yeah. So, I want you each to name for me, and then we'll get our final thoughts. Name for me one good thing in this film. You know, because I often say, you know, all I really care about is one good thing to walk out. But that's usually when we're discussing like something without nearly the background of a movie like Poltergeist 3. But we'll like watch some cheesy Spanish horror film from the late 60s. It's all grainy and made for 2 bits. And I'll go, you know, but that one image of, you know, the sun rising over the temple, that looked good, and so I'm going to give it a pass. Is there anything here that you guys would give a pass?
I think Howard worked acting.
That one part where they're walking down the hallway and like the doors open like slowly one at a time, like in the reflection, like
mirror.
Kane pops.
That's
Kane
cool.
pops up. That's creepy. That's effective.
Yeah, except for the bargain basement Kane.
Yeah.
No, but it's not a, like I can give that a pass because you don't really get a good enough look at it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with him on that. That was the one I was going to pick too, though, for what it's worth.
I would have to say I'll go back to the scene, like as far as characters go, the scene with Carol Ann and the older sister, or I guess her cousin. And I will have to say the
Zelda Rubinstein, even though the change up where she turns into a desiccated corpse and then hands bust out, like that's genuinely gross and like shocking, totally out of left field. Somebody decided to do something really crazy with that, and I got it, somebody tunneling out with like, I don't know, it looks like bugs mixed with dirt. Like it's really crazy looking when people dig their way out of a Zelda Rubinstein-sized corpse as well. But a full,
it was remarkable.
Sized person comes out of it. I will say that was pretty effective. It's sad that effect is in this movie. And again, totally negated by all the terrible things that just takes a big crap on the legacy of certainly the first one and any consistency from the second one. So,
well, I mean, I think this movie, in reflection, like you look at, the second one is flawed, but it's still, a decent.
Mm-hmm.
It's a middle level horror flick. It's worth. You watch the first one, you kind of watch the second one. It makes good sense to watch them back to back. If you go all the way and watch this one, it's kind of like the letdown because there's not enough awesome. There's like a few things in Poltergeist 2 that are just straight up awesome. There's nothing really, like there's nothing on the level of like the torso creature or anything. Like even like the stuff that we just talked about, like there's nothing that's so awesome that it kind of glosses over the stuff that are inferior about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it may very well have to do with budget. Maybe they just couldn't afford to do a bunch of things like the worm creature that crawled out of Craig Nelson's mouth.
Well, again, if you have a terrible budget, you don't. This is the problem that usually happens. Is you don't also saddle it with a terrible movie. Like, you can do many things with a low budget, but maybe don't have. I mean, and they were doing everything, like filming inside of like basically a hotel as your set. That's about as freaking cheap as you can go. I mean, there are not that many sets in this movie.
You're right.
There's a handful. I would say maybe half a dozen. And filming in a parking garage, that doesn't. I mean, you have to light it and everything, but as far as like getting permits and stuff, the places that they
when you're blowing up cars, you kind of have to do a lot of stuff.
Did they blow up any cars?
Yeah.
But again, you didn't have to, like why blow up cars when you could have more effects like the corpse? Like you make your choices. Like why are they like? It didn't matter they were blowing up cars because it looked so crappy and they threw all that fake snow on it. Like you can make those choices. The car thing doesn't have to stay in the picture if it's going to cost that much. If you have an intimate setting, play up the intimate setting. Don't decide to blow up cars.
I mean, I was thinking about how I saw a movie, and I don't know what movie this was. And Tony or Drew, if you ever figure it out, I want to see it. But it's this. It was in a hospital, sort of like Halloween 2, but it could have been a high-rise. Doesn't matter. But it's like the nurse, she's all alone, and they got like 5 or 10 minutes of suspense just out of the elevator bay, of her watching the elevator come down, and then she's getting on.
That's totally familiar.
And there was just all this business with taking the elevators up and other elevators moving down and knowing that there's somebody else in the building, but they haven't found you yet and you're trying to avoid them. That is cheap as hell. All you have to do is be smart,
No, again, that's why it feels like that's the frustrating part. Like it's this just craptastic amalgamation of things when you can have a movie that's an intimate thing like this with like the mirrors, some of it's ham-fisted, but you could do some of that in a way that is truly compelling, and then you can also, again, like I said, why blow up cars and crap when you don't need any of that? Like that's the kind of also like, oh look, it's a dream. Oh, and it turns out to literally be like negated anyway.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't set the hotel thing on fire and then cause them to have to evacuate. It just instantly cuts to, the sprinkler system's on. That's inconvenient. Like, there's no stakes.
And why is there like so many sprinklers in the garage? It seemed like there was.
I have no idea. Maybe that really happens.
That's pretty standard. If you look,
Well, I was at and by the way, there's a lot of that because the reason I kind of know this is we had somebody at a company I worked at shoot an airsoft gun at one of the sprinklers, and it broke and flooded huge sections, and including the server room, which almost caught on fire.
Oh, no.
It flooded the CEO's office. Smoke was everywhere. We got evacuated. People left their car keys by accident in the thing and couldn't get their cars. So there's a huge, like, the sprinkler system is actually a legit thing. I thought it was pretty crazy that they're like, hey, can we turn on the sprinkler system in this, that's not supposed to happen regularly. So maybe they could test it or whatever, but like spending the money to go, hey, can we set off your sprinkler system? That seemed kind of crazy to me as far as budget goes. But again, there's no stakes in any of that. That's what sucks. Like they just couldn't decide how they wanted to make what this movie wanted to be.
I agree. We're trying to figure out in the chat room what is this movie I was talking about with the elevator bay, and Darren was saying maybe it's Visiting Hours, but the thing is, Visiting Hours is a really good-looking movie, and this thing I was seeing, this was a TV movie, and it was on videotape, but it was a movie. But I remember just being just awestruck, and it's like, there are some guys like Quentin Tarantino and a few other people who go, all right, I know I don't have any money, but I can still create suspense. Just if you give me this elevator bay and that camera, and that's, maybe.
I guess that's where talent divides, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely it. That's absolutely it. So, all right, that's it. It's 9:30, so we need to get our final thoughts and then come around for our endorsements. And you could probably make it short because I don't know what the heck else we could say about this movie. But Tony, it was Tony, Drew, Julia, Jason. Final thoughts, Poltergeist 3.
Well, like I said before, it's a huge like the way that they just soil the legacy of people who passed away, like making these movies. What they turned out is, oh man. I mean, I often joke about how the Indiana Jones series comes with 3 good movies, and they include this cool coaster for another movie that I don't know if they made. Like, if you want to buy the box set, there's like 3 movies, and then you get this 4th bonus coaster that you can put your drink on while you watch those movies. I kind of wish this is the way that is, where, it would have been okay, like, if Kane had never reappeared, if they'd let, Carol Ann, just leave the girl in peace, I mean, maybe she wanted to act. That's cool too. Far be it from me to say, hey, they should have, I'm guessing cooler heads were involved in that, but just like as the legacy of these people, damn, like that's just a crying shame.
Yeah.
This movie of all movies, which is just a mess. Like, I don't, terrible.
Drew, do you have anything that you would add to that?
It's a truly horrible movie, more so than a horror movie. It's like I said, it's wildly. It's outside of the fact that Carol Ann's in it and Kane is in it. It doesn't feel terribly consistent with the other two. It's very much more of a low rent kind of movie, and it's just. Honestly, I would urge people to just stop with Poltergeist 2. Like, if you decide, like, I want to do a Poltergeist marathon, just skip this one. It's not really worth it.
It's not like, and I definitely urge people, like, don't even see it like, oh, we're gonna watch it ironically, which I hate anyway. Like, I think that's caused a lot of really bad, dumb crap. But just don't, like, I feel bad that I feel okay because I rented it because the people should get the money if you rent this, but I do feel like I did something wrong by sending them more money. Especially the director and guy who did the score.
It's funny because you think of like Doug, what's his name? Pinhead.
Doug Bradley.
Doug Bradley.
Yeah.
He keeps doing those movies because it's a paycheck, and I haven't watched all the Hellraiser movies.
Well, he wasn't even in the last one. They actually recast Pinhead.
I'll be darned.
Don't.
Anyway,
Yeah, don't go much further. The last two especially, like you just, don't do it, man. Seriously.
My point is just that I can see continuing to make movies because they're just trashy in their way of making money. Sometimes those are really fun, and if you wrap all the way around into like Charles Band territory, something can be a lot of fun. But this, I don't know, this falls flat. I don't know, if you took this movie and you called it not Poltergeist, called it something else, and I don't know, you made it seem as though it were made in Spain in the 70s or something, maybe I would accept it as just a random, weird, trashy movie that wasn't very good. But instead, this is a lost opportunity. And I got nothing else to say about that. Julia, we missed your final thoughts because I'm certainly not going to have any. What are your final thoughts?
Well, yeah. I think that the mirror tricks are kind of cool. They're overdone, but I do agree that like the whole, and it's cheap, but it's effective when you can see something happen. Like there's one thing we didn't mention, which is kind of a neat thing, is when they see something happen in the mirror, and then before it happens in real life, like a person walks out of the room and they haven't, or walks out of the room in the mirror after they've walked out of the room in real life. That's a kind of a neat effect, and that happens twice.
Yeah,
and,
that was good, right? Yeah.
Where Kane is opening over and over, opening doors in the mirror, but not in those things are really cool and effective. It's like I said, it's overdone, but it is a neat little touch. It is annoying to me, and there's another inconsistency with Nancy Ellen and other people's characters, that she sees that, and yet she's totally, like, forgets it 2 seconds later. Like, she sees her husband leave the room and then leaves the room in the mirror, and then, like, she's like, okay. And I guess maybe that is how you really are in real life. When you see something weird, you just kind of dismiss it and go, obviously, I didn't really see that. But
maybe that was his
like
80s cocaine. She's like, well, I've seen that before. Like, I can afford cocaine. I've seen that thing. That's happened.
Yeah. So I don't know, but yeah. So aside from that, there really wasn't a whole lot. And well, like I said, I think the main characters are decent actors. I think the acting of the extras is atrocious, just awful. I mean, I think I could have done better than most of the actors in this movie. But and I'm not an actor at all. But I think beyond that, there's not really much else to say.
Thank you very much. All right. So I think all of us are ready for the remake, ready for a reboot on this one.
No, I don't want to. I actually have seen a couple of clips, and it looks like it's not going to be that good to me. But I don't know. I don't have high expectations.
Ready in the fact that we're ready to see it for the podcast. Ready in the fact of like, oh man, this is a thing that needed to happen. Maybe not.
No.
All right.
I will be stunned if it's. Will probably be better than Poltergeist 3. Like
it would be
if it's good as other
Poltergeist 3. I'm gonna do what my friend Max suggests another friend do, and just rip up a seat and throw it at the screen.
But I will be really surprised if it's even as good as Poltergeist 2.
The question is, will it be as good?
It can't. No, I doubt it is.
Think about like The Conjuring and Sinister and things we've seen in the last couple of years. This new movie, 2015, comes in the context of those. So the question is, will it be part of that conversation, or will it be something completely different? And
I do feel bad because I'm normally one against, like, I tell people, like, why the hell did you go to this movie if you know you hated it from the beginning? Like, if you knew you hated it, why are you watching this? Like, I have zero interest. I saw 3 different trailers when I went and saw Mad Max again, and all of those massive budget pictures, I was like, nope, don't even care about any of this.
Yeah.
And I usually don't go see those movies and rail against that, and yet for the podcast, I'm going to go.
Yeah,
so,
devoted.
Yeah, I'm part of the problem, unfortunately. Hypocrite is I.
But you know, think of it this way, Tony. By watching it, you will be saving the hundreds of people that hear the podcast and hear how awful it is. You'll be saving them.
Look, what if it ends up being good? We're
That would be
absolutely
awesome.
ruling out the possibility.
I am always about, like, if I eat crow and the movie's good, like, I'm not one of those people who just has to hate it because I went in wanting to hate it. Like, if it's actually good, that's awesome. Holy crap! Yeah. I didn't expect that, and that was good. That is great.
Somebody gives you a good time. It's a good time, right?
Because I know people who are going to hate on it regardless because they've already told people I'm going to hate this. But I'm always about if it does something I didn't expect or if it's surprising, that is an amazing experience because you're just like, wow, that's the best. It's like when you get some food that you're like, I bet this is a great new restaurant. You're like, that was an amazing meal. I did not expect that. I love that. That's great. I hope that is the case. That would be much better. I am suspect, but hey,
can I just point out
that would be awesome.
My favorite review on Rotten Tomatoes for Poltergeist 3. I only look at this stuff after I watch a movie, okay, because I don't want to be influenced. My favorite review from a viewer on Poltergeist 3 says, "Son of a fucking bitch, I meant to watch Exorcist 3, not Poltergeist 3. I just sat through this entire piece of suck. I didn't realize until it was over I had mixed up movies. Fuck
How's that
me.
possible?
2 hours of my life wasted. Fuck you, Poltergeist 3.
Well, the worst thing is I've actually seen Poltergeist 3. As much as I dislike this movie, I've somehow managed to watch it at least 20 times in my life.
Really?
Yeah.
Good Lord.
I've seen Grease 2 probably that many times, and I have a soft spot for it in my heart.
Grease? Did you just say Grease 2 is a good movie?
Yes, it is.
No, not
I said that.
Connie Stevens is a good actress. Grease 2 is an entertaining movie.
It's an entertaining movie.
Let's just agree to disagree on both, that it is good and it is entertaining.
But we all agree on Connie Stevens, I assume. That's
We should do endorsements.
Yes.
In the interest of timeliness.
Yeah. All right. Endorsements. Tony, did you have anything to endorse for us? Tony?
Did we lose Tony?
He may have had to run back into his undisclosed location.
Or he may have just dropped.
So he went into the secret underground bunker to join the initiative.
Yes. Okay. Well,
he's back. I think he's back. Are you back, Tony?
Yeah, and I have to unmute him.
Yeah. Okay. Tony, do you have endorsement?
Yeah, that was really weird. I just heard, my phone, I guess, just freaked out. Like, I just heard my fave. Like, it was a really surreal experience.
You're being haunted by a poltergeist.
All right.
Hopefully, I'll avoid mirrors tonight.
You gotta die.
Oh, that's not cool. I watch enough horror movies. I don't think that's funny now, especially with the curse.
Why wouldn't you think that's funny, Tony? Let me in.
Yeah, well, I've seen enough horror movies, A, and B, why there's a curse already. That's just mean, Drew. You should know better. I thought we were friends.
The curse doesn't affect people who talk about Poltergeist. That's a completely different movie.
Tony,
anyway,
I'm going to go there.
To quote Patrick Swayze in Ghost, I thought you were my friend.
Right.
Tony endorses my impression of Kane.
Yeah.
Right,
I don't have any endorsements I could think of. I've been mostly working, other than also go see Mad Max again. Not that I didn't make my point clear enough last time, but yeah, I'm hoping to see it again in IMAX. But that's where I'm at. Sorry, not nearly as interesting as it could have been, I guess.
No, that's fine. You've been heads down and crunched. That's fine. Did we go? Was Julia next?
Yeah,
Julia, do you have any endorsements?
Don't forget Drew this time.
Come on.
Jason, you better not forget me.
Yeah, he's next.
I think you've verged over into Mae West territory. You started out.
Why don't you come up and scream me sometime? Well, that's WC Field.
Nice.
All right. Go, Julia. What's your endorsement?
No, it's Drew. I'm third.
No, but don't we alternate genders?
No, not this time.
Okay, Drew.
I did briefly become Mae West, so.
Most of our audience is so young they don't even know who Mae West is. I just have to point that out. So, but Drew, what are your endorsements?
My endorsements is completely self-serving again. Halloween Man issue 10 is out. It is on Comixology. You should go buy it. You should read it. You should tell me what you think of it. This is very important. It's important to the fate of the free world. It's important to keep being Tony from being haunted by ghosts. Like, multiple levels. This is important. That's your homework. You need to go do it. It's only $1.99. It's very important. So that's my endorsement. Halloween Man issue 10 on Comixology. Read it.
That's sweet. That's great. Julia, did you have any endorsements?
I don't know. I'm so depressed because the end of my TV season has arrived, and so I don't know. There's some things that I'm excited. I'm looking forward to Extant coming back for the summer. I'm looking forward to, what was the other one that I was like, the new True Detective. I'm looking forward to that, but I can't endorse it because I haven't seen it yet. But it's Colin Farrell and Vince Vaughn, and who did we decide the female was?
No, I can't remember.
God, my brain just, I don't know.
Well, anyway. That's
from The Notebook.
McAdams.
Yeah, Rachel McAdams.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that looks like it's going to be really good just by the cast alone, so we'll see. But that's all. I'm just waiting, anticipating for the next round of good TV.
Two quick endorsements. One, I posted on the page the other day, which is a 30-minute radio documentary that was on BBC last year, now on YouTube, that you can listen to, that just discusses the benefits, strengths, weaknesses, and differences between Hammer horror and Amicus horror. And we've done a lot of Hammer. We haven't really done any Amicus. So that is a retrospective that will happen probably after our next retrospective. And because we all want to do some Amicus. And that, and also I'm going to very soon do an interview with the guys who just finished producing a really cool Dark Shadows miniseries for audio dramas, and that's Big Finish Productions. And these guys are amazing because they actually get professional actors, sometimes really famous actors.
Well, they do a lot of Doctor Who audio dramas.
A lot of Doctor Who. Yeah, they do Doctor
cool.
Who. They do random other, crazy stuff that you wouldn't expect, like Blake 7. Whatever people are interested in. And so they made a 13-part Dark Shadows miniseries that takes place in 1983. In other words, it takes place in a season like 10 years after the end of the show, which is so crazy. It's written like a soap opera. There's lots of characters. It feels like the real thing. It has a lot of the original actors. Amazing. I've really been enjoying listening to it. That's Big Finish Productions, Dark Shadows.
And it's better than the Tim Burton Dark Shadows, right?
Oh my God. Yeah, no, it's everything that the Tim Burton Dark Shadows wasn't. That's what's crazy. It's it's delightful, and you can get them on audiobook, or you can download them and get them.
Oh man, I got to check out the Blake 7 one. That's cool.
Yeah, no, for sure. So and yeah, if you've got a favorite old doctor, like they've got episodes with the second Doctor, or third, fourth. Tom Baker still making new episodes in audio, and these are fully scripted audio dramas, with Tom Baker as the fourth Doctor. It's crazy. So, yes, you should check that out. Anyway, I have enjoyed discussing this. Tony, I know you got to get back into the studio. Thank you, everybody. Darren says, in the chat room says, check out the 80s Dark Shadows with Ben Cross. So maybe I will do that and see if Spock's dad does any better as Barnabas Collins. You guys have a fantastic week. We will be back next week with the 2015 Poltergeist remake, and maybe it'll be better than Poltergeist 3. Leave reviews for us. Leave comments for us on the Facebook page. Leave reviews on iTunes. We want to read those. We will totally engage. And this is really cool. This retrospective is wrapping up. So grab your friends and chain them down and force them to listen to these episodes and the upcoming one, because it will change their lives. I have no doubt. So Thank you, and we will see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Night.
Night.
The plug going to the light.